I am Caryn James. I'm film critic for BBC Culture, and I am so delighted to be talking to these three incredible, versatile actors. Patricia Clarkson, whom you know from many television series, including Sharp Objects on HBO recently, and films including The Station Agent and Pieces of April, which she was nominated for an Academy Award for. Brendan Gleeson, who is currently in The Tragedy of Macbeth, directed by Joel Coen, as Duncan, and also appeared as a guy named Donald Trump in the Comey Rule on Showtime, and also was well known for In Bruges, which is the favorite film of so many people you can't even count that. And Esco Jouléy, who is, in addition to being an actor, a singer, dancer, clown, movement coach, and an actor in series including High Maintenance. So thank you all for being here. I love this series. It is so witty and sly and also moving at the same time. I feel like any conversation today, though, about any film or TV series kind of has to start with the pandemic question. When did you film this, and where? And under what circumstances were you all kind of masked up between takes, and what was that like?
We flew in. Brendan came in from Ireland, you know, and we flew in. Esco and I flew in from New York.
Yeah.
And at this time last year, a year ago, at the height of Delta.
Oh my God.
And we all came in. I don't know about you guys, but you know, there's this funny story is that everybody I was telling I'm going to London, and my mother's like, Patty, you are not going to London. And I said, Mom, I'm going to work with Stephen Frears, Nick Hornby, and Brendan Gleeson. And she was like, oh, you're going. Screw COVID, go, you're going. You know, I was like, because I mean, Esco, you must have been, it was tough. I mean, we had to make a very big decision to go and be completely sequestered, completely. So that's what we did. It was very safe set, but we all came in masked up because, you know, none of us had vaccines. We were all, but it was a very, very safe environment, I think, very sequestered. We were not allowed to go to a store. We had assistants to help us.
We were pretty much in a bubble.
We had a great excuse not to go shopping. You didn't have to get it. You just said, tea bags. I'd love some tea bags, please. And they would just miraculously arrive then, or not. But it was or not. But it was a bubble in a very real sense. It just felt very enclosed, which was kind of great because it was written almost, you know, the fact that there was a previous series was an incredible coincidence, because it was almost as if it had been written for that exact setup. You know, it was one coffee shop. It was like no exteriors really, and everybody in the same place, 3 people, and then extras and stuff like that. There were like, even at that, we were all, as you say, it happened so quickly, where vaccines come in, and you know, I've been boosted at this stage, you know, vaccine twice and boosted at this stage in the year since, and it's hard almost to remember when the vaccine hadn't happened really yet. It was starting to get rolled out, and it was a very, very different scenario. I mean, it did feel much more dangerous, and there was a bit of a scare with one of the extras at one stage that thankfully turned out okay. But for the most part, we were very, you know, really assiduous in trying to keep it all together, and we felt safe with each other, which was good, you know. We
made it through. We didn't lose a single day from COVID. Nothing. We were
great the whole time.
We were great. We were shooting 130 pages of Nick Hornby dialogue in 3 weeks, Caryn. It was, I don't know.
It was fast.
You know,
it was fast. It was fast, but it was great.
Like doing Chekhov in 3, like it's like doing, you know, Cherry Orchard in 3 weeks. It was tough. It was really tough, and but it made it. I think the speed made it potent. We had to move quickly. We couldn't we couldn't, you know, talk too much about, we couldn't explore a million things. We had Stephen Frears, you know, brilliant Stephen Frears there to just say, no, darling, just sit down and let's go.
Stephen Frears was megaphoning us to go faster, basically, because, you know.
Well, because, you know, we had so much
because
time.
we're 15 pages a day. And
I mean,
also, I think he kept quoting Billy Wilder, saying that Billy Wilder always said just faster, faster, funnier, you know. And so we had this intense kind of relationship, and these two relationships going on. We all had these two relationships that had to be negotiated, and it was very smart. But I was a little resistant to just running a train through it. And not catching the view on the way. It's like you did want to indulge, and the problem was that we obviously had to, you know, we could trust Stephen, but you still felt, hold on, I just want to get off of this station. I need a smoke, and it's right. Like, and in the end, you just had to say, okay, we're on the train. It's going as fast as an express. That's it, and we just hope to get there. And it in a way, it was exhilarating because it meant you have to, you know, I don't think either any of the three of us have safety nets to any great degree anyway. But this kind of threw it out totally, you know, it just.
Do you remember like at the end of some of these days, you guys, because we could only hang out with each other. We couldn't see anybody else. But, you know, at the end of like the week when we'd be shooting.
We are really exhausted.
Together. And
utterly exhausted. It's a brain melt.
Like, okay, let's learn another 45 pages over the weekend. And like, is there bourbon?
Well, like for me, I came in and I was like, hey, you two, is it always like this? You know, this is my first time. But it was an amazing thing to step my feet in, especially being with like these two. These two crazy ones.
You were our savior.
About how you were cast. Esco,
about how I was cast.
How you were cast, and what you knew about Jay's character when you first heard about it.
Well, funny story. My friend actually auditioned for the role of Jay, and called me up and was like, "Hey, I just auditioned for this thing that I think you'll be perfect for." And then I ended up getting it, and he ended up being my reader with me on it, and it was just the most fantastic thing. I just felt as though I knew something about this character, like we could be best friends. And I just wanted to dive into it. Like, teach me something. And then you get the call, you're like, hey, you're going to London. I'm like, oh, okay. There's nothing happening in the world. There's nothing happening. I literally convinced myself that it was okay. And you just go and dive into, you know, the opportunity to work with some fabulous people, and also like to, you know, go to London. So yeah.
So how was Jay's character described to you? Were they looking for a non-binary actor to play a non-binary character or not?
I think, because I don't want to speak for anyone in the wrong way, but I think they were looking for a non-binary character, and they found one. A non-binary character. They were looking for a non-binary actor, which was great for me. It was one thing I didn't have to work too hard on, but also it's just like your character could have the same favorite color as you, you know. So you take some, you lose some.
I remember how excited, you know, Stephen, he's so droll but how excited he was about you. Oh my God. Do you remember this, Brendan? Stephen is so in love with you, so adored you, was so excited you would come on because you were his discovery.
Yeah,
and,
me and Stephen. Me and Stephen are like this.
Yeah, I know. No, Stephen he's a dreamboat and a British dreamboat. And he, but I remember the excitement about you, and it was so moving to me. I still remember him talking about you to me, and it was joyous when we all came together. It was to finally really start this, and
but it was an education for me too, in terms of What was great about this, like, it was funny, I was kind of reading at home with my better half, and we'd end up having fights. It was really hilarious.
Right, yes.
It's such a, you know, it's so well written with regard to a marriage that's been happening for a long time. And it was great. It was fun now, but like, the whole non-binary thing for me was an education, really. And so with Esco, his spirit was so liberated and so liberating. It was a wonderful thing to be taught about and to learn and to find things out about and make mistakes with. And it felt as if, in a way, it was, I think we were all maybe, I don't know, but aligned a little bit to some, obviously you try to align yourself anyway with a character, but I felt that, yeah, it's easy for me to play dumb in this because there's a certain amount that I would be ahead of the game with Scott. You know, Scott was a little bit more Neanderthal, but only up to a point. And so that whole, you know, that whole area was fantastic because it was a journey I was going on. You know, at the same time.
No, pronouns are definite. I had a non-binary assistant, and they taught me a lot, and you know, it was a learning curve for all of us. I think it's the new world now in the proper world, and we've all kind of. But this show, I think, helped all of us kind of have a closer, better understanding of. I think there's a touch of Brendan's character in all of us. You know, I think we are in a new world now with these pronouns, but they are right, and they have to be people that, you know, they have to be listened to. And so it was quite an eventful, what was it, 3.5 weeks, 4 weeks.
I can't even remember. I cannot even remember. Okay, you too.
I don't either.
I'm
and
like,
it wasn't the bourbon. I really don't.
No, it was a beautiful moment in time that, like, I feel so blessed to be a part of. It was like we entered the bubble, and then we exited the bubble, and the bubble flew away. You know,
that's it. Actually,
do you know what I mean?
It's too bad you don't remember, Esco, because I do have a question for you about all of that. Once you were cast,
I might remember to ask me anyway.
Okay.
Yes.
When you were cast, did anyone, Stephen Frears or Nick Hornby or anyone on the set, come to you and say, help us figure this out? Do we have it right? Does Scott have it wrong in the correct way? I mean, did they go to you for advice about stuff?
I think we all equally got Stephen and Nick coming to us with questions equally, because we were all trying to understand the perspective of these people. And I don't think there's like a right or wrong, but there is a question of like, what do we need to say in this part of the story that's going to help us move forward along the story? And so it was more questions like that, because I don't know everything. You know, I am non-binary, but non-binary is it could be anything. It could be.
But you're not bothered if someone uses a pronoun he or she with you.
No. So I'm okay with.
Well, because remember, I was your wife.
You're my wife.
So
you don't have to do that, Patty. You don't have to do that, Patty.
You didn't care if I used he pronoun a lot with.
Yeah. So it was me trying to understand Jay's perspective and how they present themselves into the world. And Jay just taught me a lot about just ambiguity and like how it's okay. And also that it's okay.
You came in with that, Esco. I remember, you know, and that was part of what was so liberating about it, is that the thing you did not do was condemn or feel affronted by somebody who would get the pronoun wrong. Or I always remember you saying to me, though, that you actually enjoyed. It wasn't even that you didn't mind. It was that you enjoyed seeing what somebody else saw you as that particular day. I just thought that was the coolest thing ever.
I do.
It's like, okay, that's what people think I am today. That's amazing. Let's go somewhere else tomorrow. And it was fantastic. And it meant that there was never, it was a great way of releasing any sense of fear. Or again, there was another safety net you could chuck out of the way, because we talked to each other. I remember you saying you didn't want to be you know, obsessing or have people obsessing about that end of things. What you wanted was people to speak to you in such a way as you learned as an actor. And that if somebody needs to give you, you know, a blowout, say, you're not doing it, just walk in straight. That you wanted people to talk to you as an actor, and you learn from that process and not be kind of put in cotton wool. So it was a very odd way of coming into a place where we were all being wrapped in cotton wool and then just going for it. It's like, okay, it's a padded cell. Let's go bounce off the walls a little bit.
But also, I mean, our days were the days were so rigorous, and we had so much to do per day, you know, 10 pages a day roughly. And, you know, and that's how we, every day, you know, we were each other's crutch, each other's, you know, I can't tell you how many times Brendan would lift me, or you would, you know, Esco would lift me. I mean, it was just, or we'd lift each other. Oh, come on, no, it's good, we're okay. It was, you know, because it was a battle. It was, but
you say each other's crotch?
Yes, Brendan, that's what I said.
It starts now.
Understandings.
Now the interview has officially
Let's not edit it out. We're going to leave everything in. There's not going to be any editing in this.
Oh,
No
okay.
Just go for it.
We're never going to be invited back.
But it really was a very open conversation, because we only had 3 weeks of all of us really intensely discussing, like, what's happening, like what is going on with these characters. And you do kind of I don't want to say this like superficial stuff, but like, yes, being non-binary is a thing, but it was like one of the things that we could kind of brush aside, because it was keeping us from getting into the really importance of Jay. They're not just non-binary, you know, they have something to say, and their perspective is something that you want to see, you know.
Yeah, and the individuality of it. What was great in the writing was too that when Paddy's character became a little bit, you know, making assumptions about being vegan or being whatever it is, that hold on, this is an individual here. It's not some kind of a, you know, a herd that you kind of corral into some sort of a holding pen, and now you know what it looks like. It's kind of so looking. I mean, the great thing about it was we didn't have to work too hard. And again, I'd put it down to you, Esco, more than anybody. But with the three of us, we never had to work too hard to feel that way with each other anyway, that we were all individuals. And it was very funny on a Friday even, you know, particularly when somebody came in with some bourbon or whatever it was that somebody came in with, that we could be shouting at each other at the top of our voices about aspects of things and loving every minute of it. It was
well, but I also think why it was so rigorous, and we all agree on this, is, you know, we are saying the words of the one and only, the great Nick Hornby, and
that's right.
We are all theater people. We all knew the power of these words, Caryn. We knew that this is not improvisational land. This is not freewheeling. This is us showing up to give Nick Hornby his due, to say these words, because they're so beautiful and so smart and so well written, and the musicality of him, and to make sure we capture that. And that was really all of us, we were, you know, tied together by our love of Nick Hornby and our allegiance to his words. You know? That's
right, and Stephen's interpretation of them. And what was interesting about that was they also had the same sort of thing going, and Nick was there for the entire time, so it meant that we could reference Nick. I mean, I just have a real issue with something here. I just don't know. It just seems a little bit not sitting right, and you could explore that with him. And he would explain what he was thinking at the time. He would listen to what you had to say, and sometimes it would go one way or another or somewhere in the middle. And it just became, again, it felt very liberating.
One of the interesting things too is that there's so much wit and also emotion. Did you talk at all about how to balance all of that? Because it really works. But there's this very, very delicate balance between the wit, and then suddenly you really feel sympathy or empathy for these characters.
It's, I think, you know, again, with the speed, maybe, I think we didn't talk too much about things. We let Nick, we let the words and our own emotions that we feel for one another and come through organically, which is again beautiful writing, and that it can take you to places that you don't have to reach for. And when you're acting with someone of this caliber, the emotional life, we also, as we bonded, as we went through this and bonding, it became a very emotional experience for all of us. So when we were on the set, the wit and the humor and the pathos, that's the beauty of Nick, is that it's sometimes in a breath, it's sometimes in a word. It shifts from the humor to, the darkness. It's from the jugular to the tears, and you just don't know. But we didn't, Brendan, we didn't really weigh too much. We couldn't, like I said, Stephen would just say, oh, just sit down and let's go. All right. I don't want to know what you had for breakfast. No,
yes.
Sit down. No.
Esco, what are you doing? What are you doing?
What are you doing? Patty, darling, no.
That the emotional journey that Scott was on would, if things were, because I knew that he had a wall and was less accessible of his nature, and that I remember being quite fretful at that the pain he was under, the pain he was in, and the stress he was under. Could be brushed aside with a sharp wit, and if it was moved too quickly. It was important, though, as I say, it was like suddenly you got to say, no, we can't have a slow, exploration of this particular thing. It has to be. And again, what I was conscious of all the time, for the most part, was, as Patty says, being worthy of the writing. Because the writing was extraordinary, off the page. It was gold. And it's just trying to make sure that you encompass what he was trying to get at in all its nuance, because it was so nuanced.
Did any of you create backstories for these characters?
Yeah, but Stephen didn't want to know. No. But just back to the writing.
What are your
But wait, just briefly back to the writing, is that, I had these high hopes to learn some of these lines before I left for London. So I had a couple of friends come run lines with me, just very specific. One of my dearest friends is the great actor Henry Stram, and he came to run lines with me, and he was reading these scenes with me, and he was just, his jaw was right. He was, Patty, I read this, my dear friend Ron Marasco, every time I read these scenes with people, they would just be like, and it made me even more nervous. I was like, relax, say the words with me, because they were kind of overwhelmed at how, and that's what I said I was talking about today, gay or straight, several of the men who ran these lines with me were gay men, but it didn't matter. It's just the beauty and the power of these lines and they needed very little. You just had to be true to them.
Yeah.
And you see so much, there's so much that happens that we don't see in between episodes that you have to sort of talk about or encompass in there. For instance, the big blowout between the two therapists, Steve and Cindy, that apparently happens in the office that you hear about later, that they were a couple, was not a couple for 2 years. Can you envision that in your head? I mean, when you're talking about it, do you have an image of what went on in those therapy sessions?
Yeah, we do.
My back, I was relieved to get was I thought Scott, in the end, when he talks about being Led Zeppelin's accountant, I think that's kind of the area he might have been in. And
you were never Led Zeppelin.
You were never lit. Thank you. Automatically, I felt that line.
Never.
I felt the truth of
you
that
never
line
fought
again.
World War II.
He never fought World War II. You never Led Zeppelin's accountant. Okay. But it was. I mean, it was the lines. The story was very. easy to add on to. You know, I was like, cool, you know, therapy upstairs, I hear everything that's going on. I know everything about you. You know, it was just so much fun to add on to things for the next episode of being like, oh, I wonder what Jay heard. Oh, I heard everything. Hey, what's up? Is that the Quakers? Really? Oh, you know.
Oh, the
Love
Quaker.
love it.
Remember, Brendan, we couldn't get through that scene, the Quaker Shaker scene. We couldn't get through it.
Just picture being on set, having to deal with Patty and Brendan, just take after take. Guys, be professionals. Be professionals, okay?
Oh my God, the Quaker Shaker. I mean, that's the thing, Caryn. It's often, you know, again, the writing, it's so lovely, and it's such a treat, and it's you know, a rare treat to have quite this level of, and we've done a lot, Brendan, and this was just, we've been around a long time and worked with a lot of people, but these words really, they rang so true, and so and I am still, they're still in me. The words are still in me. I don't remember much of the shooting, but I remember the weight of the words, and I don't think they'll ever leave me.
You had never worked with each other before, any of you. Patty and Brendan, you've not worked with each other before.
In my dreams, though, I dreamed a lot about them a lot. Yeah.
No, no.
In your dreams, you working with them as well?
I wanted to work with them, of course.
Yeah.
With Brendan Gleeson, but and Esco was such a beautiful surprise. So it was
just like a new baby.
Brendan, we'll find something else. This is not the end of our road, I feel.
No, let's hope not. No, it was one of those shows, and I have to come along every so often, I think, to let you remember that this is the way it should be. This is the way the work process should be. This is the way the working environment should really be. Now, this is during a pandemic, so what sort of a screwed up word to use that? But the people were involved, all of them, Stephen, Nick, all of us, everybody involved in the thing had an open, generous spirit and mindset, and was vigorous in their attack on the work. There was everything that was seen to with a kind of, you know, passion is an overused word, but it was like, there was a kind of an intensity about how much it meant to people. And that started with the writing, obviously, but it carried through, you know. And
but we did have these remarkable producers, these British producers, who really, you know, kind of carried us on the days when we were really exhausted by a Friday and had shot, 40 pages, 50. We were, you know, they were really glorious to us. We were very well treated, and we were in our nice little apartments in London. Mine had a Mary Poppins roof. I had a Mary Poppins roof outside my little balcony. And it hummed a little underline.
Oh, the cheese. We had cheese at your place. The cheese was great.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, I was asking if you shot this in sequence. Basically, it's the equivalent of a feature film that you did in 3 weeks, but a little bit, but not entirely.
Wow, when you say it like that, that seems like you did so much fun.
We did most of it, and there was an interruption then when we had to skip over and back a little bit. No, I think the intent was generally, I remember, to try to get the guts of an episode a day. You know, it was somewhere between 12 and 15 pages, I think, a day. And then do that, so do 10 episodes, 5 and 5, and then come back for the final week and redo it. Now, it kind of ran out of, it ran over because you couldn't keep it that way. And then at some stage we had to flip. But for the most part, it was interesting because I think we could jump to 9 or something, an interesting one a little earlier than we thought. And I remember.
Was that when the extra got COVID? We had to skip something.
I think we had to skip 4.
Well, you know what they call, we shouldn't call them extras, because in London they're called supporting artists, which is so beautiful and lovely. And honestly, we should adopt that phrase here, and that, you know, it's supporting artists is much nicer. Said one of the supporting artists, and they were lovely. We had so many lovely supporting artists on this film, and even our day players or supporting, you know, players were wonderful. Everybody who showed up, but
but out of our whole time there, only one person though. Only one.
And in the a supporting artist that was thankfully at the back of the coffee shop. And,
and in fairness, the producers were very careful about all that. You know, they really did take that whole thing very, very seriously. They wanted to keep it as a safe. They wanted the industry to be able to work at that point, because there was a difficulty, you know, where people were wondering, is it worth working? Because the thing was so in pandemic, and they really wanted to keep the step clean for the next person to use it, which was fantastic. And I have to say, I really respected all that they kept it as, you know, I'm older, so I kind of had to be cognizant of the fact that I didn't want to be bringing anything home particularly, and it's like, because of their care and attention, that didn't happen. Like, we all shot, and it meant that the industry was able to kind of limp along. I know that it wasn't the same in every production, and so that's why it was very, very well. I certainly appreciated the fact that this production was really, really worked hard at keeping it safe.
Because one thing that I didn't have to extra worry about was the sickness while we were trying to, like, you know, act.
Climb Mount Everest. Yeah, we didn't. No, they had a beautiful setup of a lot of testing every day, you know, almost pretty much. And we managed to, we stayed on schedule, you know, so. Yeah,
it's like, it was interesting that the question about the sequencing and that. I remember when we did have to jump ahead because there was a scare. So we had to take all the out and change into a new episode. We lost a couple of hours along the way. So when we had, I think it was 9. I think it was done a little bit ahead of time. It was fascinating knowing that was where you were headed, having been in there, and we were used to it in movies. That you have to, you know, you understand the dynamic of a performance, hopefully. And you patch in places, but it can happen anywhere. With this, we got so used to chronology that when we jumped, when we went back to it, we're kind of like, oh, I wish I'd known that when I did. It's like, it was fascinating.
No, we go back, we like, oh no, like, oh yeah.
Can we reshoot? Can we reshoot 5? No, okay.
Yeah.
Damn it. Oh, okay.
Now, you mentioned episode 9. I think that is the famous one with a special coffee that I had never heard of before, called Esco Jouléy. Do you want to tell us the name of the coffee, since you were the barista?
Oh my goodness. Wait, give me a minute. I'm going to see if I can pull this out of the atmosphere. Civic? Was it Civic? Civic coffee?
Kopi
yeah.
I think it's called Kopi Luwak, and is it a
little bit of
Kopi Luwak spoiler?
Where they eat the beans and put them out.
Yeah, Kopi Luwak. It's a coffee. Kopi Luwak.
There was none of that actually on set, correct? Have any of you ever had any of that coffee?
I've never been introduced to a civet.
Well, let me bring you one.
They're very cute little animals, though.
Oh, stop it.
Delicious. Maybe their bones are as cute as they are.
Okay, so what you're saying is that you would eat some coffee that's been through an intestine of an animal, which is fine. So I pooped it out.
Because they're so cute. I do it. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to bring you. I'm going to film it. We're going to go. It's going to be a little short thing. And like, everybody, here is Patricia Clarkson, aka Patty, trying her first civet poop of the day. It's nice and hot with a dab of cream in it. I'm gonna hold you to that, Patty. They're not gonna cut this out.
As long as I can put my cremora in it, okay? My coffee mate.
You get that. You get that. Brendan, you're not getting away with it either.
What I want is the video, not the coffee beans.
Oh, so quick, so quick. Yes, I'll make sure I send it to you. Yeah.
Interesting trajectory through the whole series that the audience who is seeing the first half, they don't really see what's coming, but there are lots of twists and turns. Episode 6, there's a big J. Scott episode, and the people you think you saw at the beginning change a lot during the course of what we're seeing. So at the beginning, I think Ellen seems like the most sympathetic one, the more sympathetic one. But then we find out that she's maybe hidden things from Scott, and Scott learns a lot. How did you look at those changes? Are they just revealing more of themselves, or have they really changed through the course of this?
I think they genuinely changed through the course of this. I do. I think we all came in hopefully without an agenda. I think each of our characters started, I think we started therapy in order to see if there is a way to move forward. What is the best way to move forward? And I think we were constantly shifting. I think our emotions were rising and falling with every time we'd meet each other, because sometimes that was the only time we would see each other. Mm-hmm. And what that would bring up before we go upstairs, and then how it would bleed into the next time we saw each other, or something that we were doing on the outside, was starting to impact, the life I had outside of the coffee shop and had outside of him, and time he was spending alone. And it was all, but I think we genuinely, hopefully, are changing right before your eyes, and throughout each episode we are becoming different people, for lack of a better word, I think.
Yeah, I definitely think Scott changes for sure. I think what's surprising about Scott is not so much that he can change, because you kind of hope that everybody can kind of change up to a point, but that he was willing to give it a go. And because I think the willingness to change is half the battle, isn't it? It's really the idea that you actually start to listen instead of talk. So I think the fact that, I think the Jay character had a huge impact on him, and also the fact that he was being, he knew he had increasingly that the gun to his head was, just on the. They pulled the hammer back. It was like, he was out the door really as well. And if he needed to, he says at one point that he just couldn't be the him that had gone into that scenario at the beginning, because he wouldn't hold on to her. Now, obviously, what happens. So it's like, but I do think that once he opened the door to it, that he was a genuinely curious person anyway, which I think is possibly a surprise. And that, he'd managed just to feel a little bit safe and corral himself into a kind of a place where he had lost his curiosity. But I don't think it took much, to prise that open. It's just that it obviously was a bit too late. And he took a long time.
Although, do you think people will be confused? Do you think people will wonder at the end what really happens?
I hope so.
Well, when the audience seeing this now has not seen the very end yet, so they don't know exactly where it ends up. But I do want to ask you, and the audience can sort of keep the answers in mind for when they watch the end. Do you think it's a happy end? Would you call it a happy ending or not?
In one sense, obviously, it has achieved its goal. I'm not sure. I'm not sure it is yet.
Mm-hmm.
I
would think they're on the kind of journey, and I also include Jay into this. I think they're all in the journey at the end of getting closer to finding happiness, their own happiness, and not kind of relying on other people to give it to them. But it's just like, because I think Jay's also affected by Scott too, of like, I've never had a person that was so like this. And then it's like, well, if I want someone to accept me, I also have to accept this.
Yeah.
So it was also a learning place for Jay too, of like, wow, I'm no different sometimes. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So I think we're all kind of on a journey to find our own happiness, I think.
Yeah, I think
I think we're still in the search for what our life will be.
Sorry?
I don't think it's, I think we're all still in a search for what our life really wants to be. But I think we also realize we have made, you know, there is no such thing as a perfect union. I mean, look at our country. There is no such thing, and that, you know, we did make tremendous sacrifices to try to keep this life and this marriage together. But how many more can we make?
Yeah.
And how many more are we willing to make? And that's, I think, the difficulty. And you know, but I do ultimately think that this is it's about love at the core of it. I think it is about the perils of love, and that we're always willing to take those risks. I mean, we're, as human beings, we're willing and able. So
yeah, that's why I wouldn't call it a happy ending as such. I think it's not a happy ending yet. I don't think, you know, I think it's they've had to renegotiate themselves and their relationships with the world, and that's a good thing, and it's all great. But you know, I always remember somebody who was gay and came out and didn't tell me for a long time, and I said, "Why didn't you tell me?" He said, "Oh, I didn't want to lose you as a friend." And I said, "But I wouldn't be a friend worth having if that made it like an issue." And he said, "Yeah, that's okay, except when you're afraid to lose all your friends," because he wasn't quite sure. It was at a time when it was not, you know, usual. And I said, okay, that I understand, because, and I kind of feel, you know, from Scott's position in this particular area, I think he is growing as a man, but I think he might love the person that he loves most, in terms of, he might be able to compensate with it, go with it, or, you know, meet any of the many internet women that he is starting to browse at. But for me, it feels sad. I always felt from the beginning, and I think I had a slight divergence with some of the others about that, including Nick and Stephen and people like that. I think this is a very sad piece in one way, because it's about loss.
Yeah, it's definitely not your traditional happy ending. There's a lot of realness in it, of like, is it unfinished? Is it complete? But I think it's like Patty said, it's where we are in now, where the world is now. They'll kind of leave things and they will be kind of what they are, but you can learn from it still.
Well, the audience will discover the rest of it when it premieres, for what it's worth, on Valentine's Day. So if that tells you anything about the fact that it's about love, it premieres on Valentine's Day. So we ended here. Thank you so much, the three of you. It has been so great. It's such a delight to talk to all of you. And thank you all for joining us. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thanks.